Today, I'm going to share with you some pages from this small sketchbook here and encourage you to create your own small space where you can create single idea sketch notes. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Verbal to Visual. I am your host, Doug Neill, and one of the most helpful pieces of advice that I can give about sketchnoting is to put into place some constraints around the note-taking process. Sometimes those constraints have to do with how many writing and drawing utensils you use. Other times it has to do with how you fill up the page with ideas, maybe creating some structure on that page to help you decide where the next idea goes. What I want to share today is a different type of constraint, a constraint in the size that you allow yourself to sketchnote on, and also the number of ideas that you sketchnote at a time. This here is my small moleskin notebook, which I will link to down below if you'd like to pick it up. I like this size as a pocket sketchbook and this format in particular that has thick pages to it. And what I'd like to do today is walk you through some of these single page entries, each of which focus on an individual idea. Because this constraint of one page, one idea might actually be relieving and freeing as you experiment with different ways of capturing ideas on the page with some combination of words and visuals. So let me show you some examples here. This here is an idea from Hank Green about creative feedback loops. He shared this idea around the release of his first novel, An Absolutely Remarkable Thing, pointing out the fact that the reason that writing a novel is so hard is because of how long the feedback loop is. With a tweet, you can get a reaction to your idea within a minute or less. With a YouTube video, maybe that feedback loop is a day. But with a novel, the time from the moment you start working on it to that time when others actually react to your work could be 5 years or more. And having the patience to put in all of the hard work over those years without any meaningful feedback, maybe that's what makes it a difficult process. So this was a single idea that came up. I can't remember if it was from the Vlogbrothers YouTube channel or from an interview maybe with AOL Build series, but I remember this idea sticking out and wanting to capture it in this way. Another way that I've used this sketchbook is to document the books that I've been reading. For a period of time, whenever I finished a book, I would create a page for it, some central image along with the title and maybe a quote, just as a way to kind of mark that moment, that satisfaction that you feel when you complete one book, a book that you enjoyed, and you're equal parts sad to leave that one behind, but eager to move on to the next one. Here's a different type of sketch note that describes the process by which I often make my weekly videos here, where I made this little calendar breakdown to show what I do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to be able to get one of these out each week. And I think I made this in response to a question coming up about how I make the videos, how I'm able to stick to a fairly consistent publishing schedule. And in a best case scenario, this is what the week looks like in order to be able to do that. Here is another idea from someone else, this from Good Life Project, a podcast that I enjoy, about what's going on internally with someone who experiences social anxiety, which does happen for me sometimes. How you have this negative thought and the default is to just believe that thought outright and then let that negative thought drive your actions from there. But then the power of mindfulness, being aware that that thought is just a thought, you don't have to believe it, and you can let your values drive your actions instead. So in this case, I think I was listening to this podcast while out on a walk. This idea came up that I enjoyed. I might have used my phone and Evernote to jot some quick ideas down, but then when I got to the coffee shop that I was walking to, sketched out this little diagram as a better way to remember and share this idea. That's why it can be nice to have a small notebook like this on you at all times, and maybe even setting the goal for yourself to add one sketchnoted idea to it each day. And what's nice is that the source of those ideas can vary from day to day. Sometimes it could be an idea from a podcast you're listening to, maybe an answer in response to a question that you get, maybe commemorating some milestone like finishing a book. Let's look at a few more. Here's another idea that came from a podcast. This one, the idea of side quests from Andy J. Pietz's podcast, creative pep talk. The idea being that even if you've got this big creative mountain that you'd like to climb, why not create smaller side quests for yourself that allow you to do some training along the way and gain some experience so that you've got the strength and the tools that you need to succeed at that final endeavor. I liked that idea so much that I ended up kind of expanding it into a full video and applying that concept to building your sketchnoting skills. Go check that one out if you're interested. Another single idea turned into a full video is this one here. This must have been when I finished reading the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown. The core idea being that with the limited amount of time and energy that you have, you can choose to expend it in all sorts of different directions, or you can focus all of that time and energy into one direction so that you can actually gain some momentum and move somewhere. Here we've got another specific idea from that book, that every time you say yes to something, what you're actually also saying at the same time is many no's to all sorts of other things. So in this case, I chose to depict that idea using this balance, showing that that one small single yes is in fact equal in weight to all of those no's. So the takeaway there is that you should choose your yeses wisely and don't be afraid to say no. Here's an idea that I'm pretty sure came from the Accidental Creative podcast with Todd Henry, a sketched scene to show that this is what developing your voice looks like. That these struggles that occur at all of these dips here, those are not a sign that you're on the wrong path. So keep moving forward because you'll realize that a peak is somewhere on the horizon and that those struggles are a necessary part of, in this case, developing your voice. Here is when I finished that book by Hank Green, an absolutely remarkable thing. Can't wait for the sequel to come out soon. And here's one that's more in the category of a visual journal, capturing a nice afternoon work session spent in a public library. And this is what my workspace looked like that day. So I feel like there's two things worth pointing out here about keeping a sketchbook like this, where you limit yourself to a single idea captured on each page. One is that I think it's a great practice opportunity that's very attainable and not overwhelming, because I'm sure that throughout the course of an entire day, there's at least one idea that you come across from someone else, come up with yourself, or some memory that you might want to capture. There's at least one of those that happens every single day that you can choose to focus on. And then as you're deciding how to depict that idea visually, you can experiment with different sketchnoting formats. Sometimes sketch out a fuller scene like this maybe, or pick a single image to focus on, maybe some sort of a diagram. That's a great way to practice your sketchnoting skills. And then the other benefit is that you get to do what I just did. Flip back through that sketchbook, remind yourself of that impactful idea from a podcast you listened to 6 months ago, a small little memory that maybe was the highlight of your day. Those types of memories are nice to be able to look back on. And in some cases, as you look back on those single ideas, you might realize that you want to go a little bit deeper into one of them. In this case, I'd love to think again about this creative feedback loop as I think more and more about writing. Likely not a novel, but maybe a full-length nonfiction book at some point. So my encouragement for you then is to pick up a small sketchbook like this, one that you can keep on you no matter where you go, and look for an opportunity each day to capture one single idea with some combination of words and visuals. I think that'll go a long way in building your sketchnoting skills and also creating a nice archive of things that you're learning and experiencing each day. If you would like some additional support in the development of your sketchnoting skills, check out the courses available at verbaltovisual.com. I think an introduction to visual note-taking is a great place to start. You can find links to that resource and others down below this video. Thanks so much for watching. Good luck continuing to build and apply your sketchnoting skills, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Until then.